There is this incredibly specific, almost heartbreaking moment in the life cycle of every wildly successful small business.
Oh, yeah. The wall.
Right. It's that moment where the dream you poured your blood, sweat, and like your actual tears into suddenly starts to feel a little bit like a trap. Because, you've built this amazing machine for yourself. It's highly profitable. Your customers absolutely love what you do. And your local reputation in town is just flawless.
Which is the dream, right?
Exactly. You are the master chef and you are spinning all the plates perfectly. But then you look around the room one day and you realize something terrifying.
You're out of hands.
You are completely out of hands. You physically cannot do more.
Yeah, I always call it the ultimate paradox of success. You basically become a victim of your own competence.
A victim of your own competence? Wow, yeah, because you're asking yourself, how do I multiply this success without just working twice as many hours?
That, spoiler alert, is physically impossible.
Right. You have to sleep eventually. So you wonder, how do I scale this beautiful thing I've created without completely burning myself out and, losing the very quality that made it great in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is. So for you listening today, the small or medium business owner who is staring at that exact frustrating ceiling, welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Our mission today is to completely unpack the transition from independent operator to network leader. We are going to explore the exact steps, the gritty strategies, and honestly, the profound mindset shifts required to transform your successful independent business into a thriving, highly scalable franchise network.
And I think we have to establish right out of the gate that franchising it's a totally different sport.
It's not just opening a second location.
No, not at all. It is infinitely more complex than just like licensing a cool logo or letting someone use your catchy business name.
Right.
When you franchise, you aren't just selling a brand identity. You are sharing a completely proven end-to-end business model.
Yeah.
So you are transitioning from someone whose primary job is running a business to someone whose primary job is leading and supporting a network of other business owners.
That is a massive identity shift.
It really is. It changes everything about your day-to-day life.
Okay, let's unpack this right here, because before we get into the massive playbook of how to actually execute this without losing your mind, we need to talk about the why.
Always start with the why.
Right. Because let's be honest, from the outside looking in, franchising looks like a terrifying mountain of legal paperwork, compliance headaches, and just a total loss of control.
Oh, it's intimidating, for sure.
So why should an SME owner who is already making good money even consider going down this incredibly complex route?
Well, it is a mountain of paperwork. Like, there is no denying that. You will read more contracts than you ever wanted to.
I can imagine.
But the view from the top of that mountain and the leverage you gain is exactly why we do it. To really understand the why, I think it helps to quickly categorize what we even mean by franchising. Because people, they throw the word around really loosely. There are essentially three main types operating in the global economy right now.
Let's hear them.
First, you have product franchising. The easiest way to visualize this is to think of a car dealership.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a local entrepreneur owns the dealership, but they have secured the territorial rights to distribute a specific manufactured product like Ford or Toyota vehicles in that exact region.
Right, so they aren't like building the cars in the back room with a wrench.
No, definitely not.
They are strictly the distribution arm with exclusive rights to the brand's output in that zip code.
Precisely. You nailed it. Then taking it a step further, you have manufacturing franchising.
How does that differ?
This is where the franchise actually produces the goods themselves, but under incredibly strict specifications and formulas provided by the franchisor.
Oh, like beverage bottlers.
That's the classic textbook example.
Wow.
Because Coca-Cola doesn't want to pay to ship heavy water and heavy glass bottles all over the planet, right?
Right, that would destroy their margins entirely.
Exactly. So they sell the concentrated syrup to regional bottling franchises, and then those franchisees add the water, they carbonate it, they bottle it to exact specs, and they distribute it locally.
It's a genius logistical solution, honestly.
It really is. But that makes total sense for a massive industrial conglomerate. Which brings us to the third type, which is really where the magic happens for the listener tuning in today.
The SME owner.
Yes. The third type is business format franchising. This is your fast food chains, your boutique fitness centers, the home service brands, the hair salons.
The stuff we interact with every single day.
Exactly. In business format franchising, the franchise doesn't just get to sell your product or slap your name on their building. They replicate your entire operational universe.
Ah, it's like the business in a box concept.
That's exactly it. A business in a box. They get the operational systems, the marketing funnels, the exact hiring practices, customer service protocols, the floor plans. I mean, everything down to exactly how you answer the phone. And the reason this specific model is so incredibly powerful for an entrepreneur looking to scale, it really comes down to two major economic and psychological theories.
Okay, I love a good underlying theory. Give me the first one. Let's talk economics.
The first is called the capital constraints theory.
Capital constraints.
Yeah. Think about your current business. Let's say you own a wildly successful local cafe and you decide, I want to open 50 new locations across the state.
That sounds expensive.
The capital required to do that is astronomical. You have to secure 50 commercial leases, buy 50 espresso machines, fund all the build-outs, and bankroll the payroll for months before any of them even become profitable.
Which means, realistically, I'm going to a bank and taking on massive, crippling debt.
Yep.
Or I'm going to venture capitalists and giving away a huge chunk of my equity, which means I lose control of the company anyway.
Exactly. It's a massive financial strain that, frankly, bankrupts a lot of ambitious founders who try to grow too fast.
So how does franchising fix that?
Franchising completely solves this bottleneck.
Yeah.
Because in franchising, the franchisees use their own external capital to build out the new locations.
Oh, wow.
Right. They secure the local loan, they sign the lease, they buy the equipment, they absorb the local financial risk.
That's huge.
Suddenly, your brand's growth is completely uncoupled from the limitations of your own personal bank account. You are expanding your brand footprint using entirely external capital.
Okay, I see the financial leverage there. You're scaling on other people's dimes, basically.
Pretty much.
But let me push back on this a bit, because there's a flip side to that coin.
Sure.
Let's say I can get that massive commercial loan. Let's say the bank loves me, my credit is perfect. Why not just take the debt, open those 50 company-owned stores myself, and keep 100% of the profits from every single latte sold?
It's a fair question.
Right. Yes, it's risky, but the upside is entirely mine. Why would I give away a massive piece of my profit margin to a franchisee? Why not just hire 50 really good shift managers to run my stores?
It's a very common objection. Like, I hear this all the time. And it leads us perfectly into the second core concept, which I would argue is actually more vital than the money itself.
Really? More vital than the capital?
Absolutely. It's called the incentives theory. And it deals with the profound, undeniable psychological difference between an employee and an owner.
Let's talk about human nature.
Exactly. Let's look at your hypothetical 50 shift managers. You can hire the absolute best managers in the market, right?
Sure.
You can pay them a highly competitive salary, give them great benefits, and even tie their compensation to, like, quarterly performance bonuses.
Give them all the carrots.
Give them all the carrots. But at the end of the day, their baseline reality is different than yours. It is not their life savings on the line.
Right.
When a pipe bursts at 2:0 on a Sunday, or when a massive snowstorm hits and 3 staff members call out, or even just when the clock strikes 5:0 p.m. on a Friday, an employee can mentally and physically clock out.
Because, I mean, if the store has a terrible quarter, the manager might miss a bonus, but they don't lose their house.
That is the crux of it. They don't lose their house.
Yeah.
Now, look at a franchisee. You have an owner-operator who has likely invested a massive chunk of their net worth.
Yeah.
They've maybe even taken out a second mortgage on their family home just to buy into your system. They have profound, terrifying skin in the game.
They cannot fail.
They cannot fail. The incentives theory shows us that owner-operators are naturally deeply incentivized to be diligent in ways an employee simply isn't.
That makes a lot of sense.
An employee might notice the thermostat is set 3 degrees too high and just ignore it. A franchisee notices it, calculates the annual impact on their utility bill, and puts a lockbox over the thermostat.
Aha! So true.
Right. An employee might throw away food that is slightly near expiration. A franchisee figures out a way to cross-utilize it to save their food costs. Franchisees hustle harder at local networking, they scrutinize the P&L statements obsessively, and they just drive relentless efficiency.
Wow.
So, to answer your question, you aren't just giving away a piece of the pie, you are trading a piece of the upside for a mutual burning commitment to success. You are creating highly motivated partners. not managing employees.
I completely buy that. You are fundamentally scaling motivation.
Yes.
A hired manager might care, but a franchisee has to care. It's literal survival.
Exactly.
Okay, so the combination of external capital and extreme operator motivation makes this a powerhouse strategy. But let's bring it back to earth for a second.
Sure.
How do we actually make this happen? Because I imagine the fastest way to end up in a massive lawsuit is to just hand an eager investor a key, slap your logo on the door, and say, good luck, don't mess up my brand.
Oh, yeah. That is essentially the recipe for rapid, spectacular failure.
I figured.
Taking a business from a single successful unit to a viable franchise requires building an unshakable, almost obsessive foundation.
Obsessive.
Very. Is a grueling period of preparation and system development that happens long before you ever legally offer a franchise for sale.
So let's talk about that physical and legal groundwork. If I'm the SME owner listening right now, what are the absolute essential components I need to build, like today?
First and foremost, you have to lock down your intellectual property, your IP. And we need to be really clear that this is far more than just registering a trademark for a pretty logo.
Right, because if I just have a cool name, someone can just change one letter and copy my whole vibe, right?
Yeah.
What else constitutes IP in this context?
It's your entire brand identity and your operational secret sauce. So, yes, it's registering the trademarks for your business name, but also any slogans, unique product names, or proprietary service marks.
Okay.
If you have developed a unique piece of software to manage your workflow, or say a proprietary chemical blend for your commercial cleaning business,
Right.
or a specialized piece of manufacturing equipment, you need patents.
It goes that deep.
Oh, absolutely. You need copyrights on your marketing materials and your training videos. Think about it from the franchisee's perspective. Your IP is the actual asset they're paying you to use.
Oh, I see.
If you haven't legally protected it, you don't actually own anything to sell them. And worse, if you start expanding without protection, a copycat in another state can register your name and legally block you from expanding into that territory.
That would be a nightmare. Building a brand for 5 years only to find out you don't actually own it when you cross state lines.
It happens all the time.
Okay, so the legal moat is built around the brand. We've got the IP. What's next?
Next, you have to brutally assess if you actually have a proving business model. And proven is a really heavy word here.
How so?
Well, just because your flagship store in your hometown is absolutely crushing it, generating massive profit, does not automatically mean the model itself is scalable.
Oh, this is a huge blind spot for founders. I've seen this happen.
Right.
A founder thinks their business is a genius model, but in reality, their flagship store is successful because, I don't know, their uncle owns the commercial real estate and gives them rent at half the market rate.
Yes. Or maybe the founder is just an incredibly charismatic local celebrity who personally knows half the town, so they never have to spend a single dime on marketing.
Exactly.
Founders constantly confuse their own unique personal advantages or just their sheer force of will with a scalable business system.
That is such an important distinction.
A proven model means the business works mathematically. It means you can drop it into a totally different geographic location, run by someone who doesn't have your charisma or your uncle's cheap rent, and it still generates a predictable, healthy profit margin based purely on the systems.
So how do you actually transfer that system to a stranger? I mean, how do you take the magic out of your head and hand it to someone in another time zone?
You build the holy grail of franchising.
It's
an exhaustive, meticulous operations manual.
Okay, I have an analogy for this. Tell me if this tracks.
Let's hear it.
When people talk about an operations manual, they usually compare it to a recipe. Like, here's how to bake the cake. But I think that's way too simple. A cake recipe is easy. I think writing an operations manual is more like writing the operating system for a computer, like you are coding the iOS for your business.
Oh, I like that.
Because it has to dictate how the hardware interacts with the software, what happens when an error occurs, how the user interface looks, everything. It's not just a list of ingredients, it's the total logic of the business.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Right.
It really is the source code of your business. Because a recipe assumes the person baking has some baseline culinary intuition.
Right, like they know what fold in the cheese means.
Exactly. An operations manual assumes absolutely nothing. Zero intuition. It must document every single granular process.
How granular are we talking?
We are talking about exact criteria for site selection, the psychological profile of the ideal employee to hire, daily opening and closing procedures down to which lights turn on first.
Seriously. Which lights turn on first?
Absolutely. Exact scripts for how to handle a furious customer asking for a refund, inventory management, and yes, literally the exact approved chemical and technique for mopping the floor.
Why so obsessive about the floor mopping? That seems like micromanagement.
Because ambiguity is the enemy of a franchise. If you leave anything open to interpretation, your franchisees will interpret it differently. Franchisee uses bleach. Franchise B uses a cheap floral cleaner from the dollar store. Franchise C doesn't mop at all. Suddenly, a customer visits 3 different locations of your brand and has 3 wildly different experiences.
Yeah, that's bad.
It's fatal. Inconsistency destroys consumer trust, and without consumer trust, the brand dies. The manual is your shield against inconsistency.
That makes perfect sense. The iOS has to run the exact same way on every single device.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've coded the iOS, we've built the legal mode around the IP, but there's another layer of legal reality here, right? Because an operations manual is just a very heavy book unless there is a legal mechanism to enforce it.
Exactly. And this brings us to the drafting of the franchise agreement and the franchise disclosure document, or the FDD.
The FDD.
Yes. And my biggest piece of advice here is, do not try to bootstrap this.
Don't use LegalZoom.
Do not download a template off the internet. You absolutely must hire a deeply experienced franchise attorney.
Treat this like a high-stakes corporate prenuptial agreement.
That's exactly what it is. These documents dictate the entire reality of the relationship for the next 10 or 20 years. They have to be airtight.
What kind of stuff goes in there?
They must clearly and legally define the financial obligations.
Yeah.
What is the exact initial franchise fee? What is the ongoing royalty structure? Are royalties based on gross or net sales? What are the mandatory contributions to the National Marketing Fund?
And crucially, what happens when things go wrong?
Precisely.
Yeah.
What are the exact terms of operational compliance? What are the grounds for termination?
Oh, right. Because if someone stops following the iOS?
Right. If a franchise decides your operations manual is too strict and they start going rogue, the franchise agreement is the only actual leverage you have to rein them in or force them out to protect the brand.
That's scary.
If it's poorly drafted, you could be stuck with a rogue operator who is dragging your name through the mud, and you'll have absolutely no legal recourse to stop them.
So we have the IP, the operating system manual, and the ironclad legal prenup. But, I'm looking at this from the perspective of the franchisee who just signed that massive check.
Okay.
You hand me a massive manual and a legal document. I still don't actually know how to run the business on day one. I'm just holding a bunch of paper.
Which is why the final piece of the foundational puzzle is building a robust support and training infrastructure.
Okay.
You cannot just hand them a book and say, read this. You have to build the systems that bring the manual to life.
What does that infrastructure actually look like? Are we talking about a literal training facility?
It can be, but it starts with technology. You need to implement an enterprise-grade point-of-sale system that automatically feeds local data back to head office so you can monitor their health.
So you can see if they're failing before they even realize it.
Exactly. You need marketing automation tools so local owners can easily run brand-approved digital ad campaigns without having to hire their own graphic designers. And yes, you need a comprehensive, structured training program.
So they come to corporate headquarters for a week.
Often longer. 2 to 4 weeks is very common.
Hey.
And you aren't just teaching them how to make the product, you are teaching them how to be an executive of your business model.
Wow.
You have to train them on financial literacy, how to read a P&L statement, how to recruit and interview their own frontline staff, and how to execute the specific customer service standards that made your original location famous. You are basically building a mini corporate university.
I'll be honest. This sounds overwhelming.
It is.
If I'm an SME owner, I'm already busy running my current successful business. Now you're telling me I have to build an enterprise tech stack, write a 500-page manual, hire expensive lawyers, and launch a corporate university just to sell my very first franchise.
It is a massive undertaking. There's no sugarcoating it. And that feeling of overwhelm is exactly why the most critical step in this entire process is actually self-assessment.
Self-assessment?
You have to take a hard, unfiltered look in the mirror. You have to ask yourself, does my business genuinely have a unique value proposition that the market needs? Is my profit margin actually thick enough to support both the franchisee making a great living and paying me an ongoing royalty?
Because if the margins are razor thin to begin with, adding a 6% royalty fee instantly bankrupts the model.
Exactly.
Here.
And most importantly, you have to ask yourself if you actually want to be a franchisor.
Because the job changes.
Entirely.
Well.
Your daily life is going to change completely. You will stop dealing with retail customers and start dealing with lawyers, compliance audits, and stressed out business owners.
It's a totally different career.
It really is. Now, if you pass that self-assessment, The absolute best advice for managing the overwhelm is to start small.
Don't try to sell 100 units in year one.
Please don't. Launch a pilot program. Open just 1 or 2 franchise locations, ideally close to home, and ideally with people you already know and trust who understand. They're essentially beta testers.
Beta testers for the business operating system. I love that.
Because the pilot phase is going to be messy. I guarantee you will find out that Chapter 4 of your operations manual is completely confusing, or that your point-of-sale system doesn't track inventory the way a franchise actually needs it to, or that your training program completely missed a crucial step in customer de-escalation.
So the pilot is where you fail safely.
The pilot program is where you stress test the entire machine. You find the flaws, you patch the bugs in your iOS, and you refine the system before you scale it to 50 people.
Okay, let's fast forward.
Let's do it.
The listener does the hard work. They survive the pilot phase, they patch the bugs, they lock down the IP, write the manual, sign the legal docs, and they start selling units. They have officially birthed a franchise network.
Congratulations to them. That's a huge milestone.
It is. But, and this is a massive but, simply getting a franchise off the ground and getting it to truly dominate a market are 2 completely different universes, aren't they?
Night and day.
It feels like checking off those operational boxes just gets you to the starting line.
That is the perfect way to phrase it. It gets you to the starting line. Creating a viable franchise and creating a thriving, legendary franchise require entirely different mindsets.
Let's dig into that.
To understand how a franchise actually conquers a market over decades, we have to look at the psychological evolution of the system itself.
This is where we shift gears from the physical nuts and bolts to the actual culture and mindset of the network. How does a brand evolve over time?
We can look at the life cycle of a franchise network as moving through 3 distinct phases.
Okay, what's phase 1?
The first is the startup phase. This is exactly what we just spent the last 20 minutes talking about: developing the concept, writing the manual, proving the model, and laying that operational bedrock.
The messy part.
Right. In this phase, everyone is just focused on sheer survival and making the machine actually function.
Keeping the lights on and making sure the pilot franchise doesn't go bankrupt.
Exactly. Then, as you gain traction, iron out the kinks, and start selling more units, you transition into the growth phase.
Phase 2.
Yes. This is where you are actively expanding your footprint, scaling your corporate support team, and executing your strategy on a regional or national level. Revenue is climbing. Royalties are flowing.
And I imagine this is where a lot of founders look at their bank accounts, look at the map with all those little push pins on it, and think, we did it. We won the game. I can put my feet up on the desk.
That is the most dangerous illusion in franchising, because they haven't won. They have merely become viable. They have built a machine that makes money. But the ultimate goal, the true end game, is the third phase, the Pinnacle Phase.
The Pinnacle. What does that look like in reality? Like, what does it feel like to run a Pinnacle franchise?
At the Pinnacle Phase, the brand's allure is so powerful that the franchises almost sell themselves.
Wow.
You aren't aggressively spending money on lead generation to find franchisees. You have a waiting list of highly qualified investors knocking down your door, begging for a territory.
That's the dream.
And your end consumers are fiercely loyal brand advocates who will literally drive past 3 competitors just to get to your store. The system operates at this incredible, frictionless momentum.
So how do you get there? Because obviously everyone listening wants a waiting list of investors and rabidly loyal customers.
Of course.
To visualize this journey from just viable to thriving at the pinnacle, let's talk about the progression of success. If we build this from the ground up, what is the absolute bedrock requirement? What is level 1?
Level 1 is undeniable, rock-solid franchise profitability.
The unit economics.
Yes. Without profitability at the individual unit level, absolutely nothing else matters.
Right.
You can have the most beautiful branding in the world, you can have a great mission statement, but if the local owner cannot pay their mortgage after paying your royalties, the system will rot from the inside out. Profitability is the absolute foundation.
Okay, so the franchisees are making money. What's the next level up?
Once you have profitability, you secure it with strong systems.
So the operations manual in action.
Exactly. This is the flawless execution of your manual, a highly efficient supply chain, and a tech stack that actually makes the franchisee's life easier, not harder. Profitability supported by strong systems allows for predictable scaling.
So we have profit and systems. I assume the third piece is the human element.
You got it. The third level is a capable team. You need highly competent people at your corporate head office who actually know how to support business owners, and your franchisees need the tools to hire and retain excellent frontline staff in their local markets.
Okay, I'm looking at these three elements: franchise profitability, strong systems, and a capable team. If I have those three things operating at a high level, I have a really good business.
You have a fantastic business.
Yeah.
You have achieved viability. You are firmly in the growth phase.
I'm not the pinnacle.
No. And this exact moment is the critical juncture. This is the tipping point where the vast majority of franchisors stop evolving.
They just plateau.
They plateau. They look at the bottom line. They see green. They see capable people running strong systems, and they get entirely complacent.
Well, because it's comfortable. I mean,
Right.
You're making millions in royalties. Why mess with it?
It is comfortable for now.
But to reach that pinnacle phase, you're saying you have to cross a threshold and keep climbing. What is the next level beyond having a profitable, well-run team?
You have to build stakeholder and marketplace trust.
Trust. That sounds a little abstract compared to profitability.
It is abstract, but it is deeply vital.
Yeah.
It means the franchisee implicitly trusts that the franchisor have their best interest at heart when making big corporate decisions. And it means the consumer trusts that the brand will consistently deliver on its promises, no matter which location they visit.
And trust naturally leads to the next level, which is transparency and shared purpose.
Yes. Opening the books, sharing the long-term vision, and aligning everyone around a goal that is bigger than just hitting quarterly revenue targets.
Which ultimately culminates in the highest level.
Yes, creating brand advocates and raving fans out of both your franchisees and your customers.
This shift moving from the foundational levels of pure profit and systems to the higher levels of trust, purpose, and advocacy is described as moving from the red zone into the gray zone.
Yes, exactly.
I want to dig really deeply into this because this feels like the actual secret sauce of the billion-dollar brands. Let's start with the red zone. What characterizes a franchise stuck in the red zone?
In the red zone, the entire relationship relies entirely on extrinsic benefits, financial gains, money.
Just cash.
It is purely 100% transactional. The franchisee bought into your system for one reason: to generate wealth. You sold them the franchise for one reason: to collect initial fees and ongoing royalties. As long as their local profits are high and your royalty checks clear, everyone is smiling.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, heavily.
Bring it on.
I'm putting my pragmatic SME owner hat back on. I'm a business person. Isn't business, by definition, purely transactional?
Sure, at its core.
So why is the red zone a bad place to be? Why do I need to hold hands in the gray zone and give my franchisees a sense of purpose or a feeling of belonging?
Well-
Like, I sell plumbing services or I sell fast casual burritos. What is my grand transcendent purpose? Isn't all this talk about shared purpose just corporate fluff designed by HR consultants? If everyone is getting rich in the red zone, who cares?
It is a totally valid, incredibly common pushback. I hear it constantly. But let's look at the psychology of motivation and the reality of macroeconomics. If you only operate in the red zone, your entire network is incredibly fragile.
Fragile.
Yes. Money is an essential motivator.
Yeah.
You literally cannot survive without it, but money only motivates up to a certain point. It creates compliance, but it rarely creates loyalty.
What do you mean by fragile, though?
Think about it. What happens when the economy inevitably tanks? What happens when a global pandemic hits or supply chain costs quadruple overnight?
Right.
What happens when a heavily funded, aggressive new competitor opens up a shop right across the street from your top franchisee and suddenly their profit margins get slashed in half?
The easy money stops.
Exactly. The easy money stops. And if the only glue holding your franchise network together is easy money, the moment the money gets hard, the network shatters.
Wow.
Because there is no underlying loyalty. The franchisees start panicking. To protect their shrinking margins, they start cutting corners. They buy cheaper off-brand ingredients. They stop spending money on local marketing.
And they start blaming you.
Oh, absolutely. They start deeply resenting that 6% royalty check they have to send you every month. They look for legal loopholes to break the franchise agreement and exit the system. It becomes a deeply hostile environment.
Because the transaction is no longer favorable to them. They have no reason to stay loyal to the brand itself.
Precisely. But contrast that with a brand that has successfully transitioned into the gray zone. In the gray zone, you have actively built a culture based on a shared purpose that transcends pure profit.
And to address my earlier point, how does a plumbing or a burrito franchise have a shared purpose?
Purpose doesn't have to mean like saving the rainforest. For a plumbing franchise, the shared purpose might be restoring safety and dignity to families in crisis.
Oh, I see.
Think about it. When a pipe bursts and a house is flooding at 2 a.m., that family is in a crisis. The plumber isn't just fixing a pipe. They are the hero restoring their sanctuary.
That reframes it completely.
It does. If you build a culture around that identity, you attract franchisees who want to build a legacy in their community, not just make a quick buck.
It's about the intrinsic identity of the work.
Yes. When franchisees genuinely believe in the brand's mission, they transform from mere operators into fierce brand ambassadors. They aren't just protecting a financial investment, they are protecting a community and an identity they belong to.
That's powerful.
That kind of intrinsic dedication is incredibly powerful. It resonates deeply with customers. The local owner provides exceptional customer service because they actually care about the brand's reputation, not just their daily ledger.
Right.
And crucially, it creates massive resilience. When the economy tanks, gray zone franchisees don't turn on you. They link arms with you to weather the storm together. They trust you. That resilience is something money simply cannot buy.
Okay, consider me completely sold on the gray zone. Resilience over pure transaction. I want that.
Good.
But this brings us to the hardest question of the entire deep dive. How does a founder actually pull their network across that tipping point?
It's the hardest part.
Right, because you can't just mandate culture. I can't send out a corporate memo on Monday morning saying, "Attention all franchisees. We now have a shared purpose. Please feel a deep sense of belonging by Friday."
No, you certainly cannot do that. Culture is built through consistent action, not memos. Transitioning into the gray zone requires a fundamental, systematic shift in how the franchisor leads and supports the network on a daily basis.
So what are the steps?
To achieve this, a franchisor must master 3 foundational pillars of network management. And it all begins with the very first and often most difficult pillar: prime leadership and culture.
Let's dive deep into pillar 1, prime leadership. What does that actually mean in practice?
Prime leadership is fundamentally about ensuring that all stakeholders from the corporate board down to the newest local franchisee are aligned, pulling in the same direction and speaking the same cultural language.
Okay.
But to achieve that alignment, the founder has to accept a fundamental rule that is often a very bitter pill to swallow.
Let's hear the rule. Give it to me.
The rule is the franchisor serves the franchisees, not the other way around.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that requires a massive ego check.
A huge one.
Because, as an independent SME founder, I am used to being the absolute undisputed king or queen of my castle. It's my money, my risk, my vision. Everyone I hire serves my vision, period.
And that mindset is exactly what makes independent founders successful in the first place. But when you become a franchisor, if you carry that exact same authoritarian attitude into the network, if you view the franchisees simply as middle managers who exist to execute your commands and send you royalty checks, you will breed intense resentment and you will fail.
So you have to flip the script.
Completely.
Yeah.
Prime leadership requires an inversion of the org chart. You have to view the franchisees as your most vital stakeholder.
Interesting.
Your entire job at head office, your marketing department, your IT department, your legal team exists solely to clear the roadblocks so the franchisees can succeed. You serve them.
And how do you tangibly prove to a network of independent, stressed out business owners that you are genuinely there to serve them? It can't just be lip service.
It all comes down to stakeholder engagement. Engagement is about tearing down the walls and establishing a genuine two-way street of communication. Successful Pinnacle-level brands actively and consistently consult with their franchisees. They treat them like a board of advisors, not subordinates.
Practically speaking, what does that look like? Give me the specific tactics.
It means setting up highly structured, reliable channels for feedback. For example, hosting a monthly virtual town hall meeting.
Like a Zoom call.
Yeah, but I don't mean a webinar where the CEO talks to the network for an hour. I mean a forum where every single franchisee can log in, hear honest updates about the company's strategic plans, and actually have an open microphone to ask hard questions directly to the executive team.
And you have to be willing to answer the hard questions live, in front of everybody.
Absolutely. No dodging. You have to face the music. Another vital tactic is setting up a dedicated, anonymous feedback portal on the franchise intranet.
Wait, why anonymous? If someone has a problem, shouldn't they just put their name on it?
Because there is an inherent power dynamic. You hold their franchise agreement. They might be terrified that if they complain about a new marketing initiative, you will target them for a random compliance audit next week.
Ah, fear of retaliation.
Exactly. The anonymity is key because you need the unvarnished, brutal truth about what is actually working in the field and what is breaking down. And this ties directly into cultivating a deeply respectful culture.
Respectful culture meaning what exactly?
It means leading by example through radical transparency. If corporate makes a mistake, say you roll out a new software update that crashes all the POS systems on a busy Saturday, you don't hide behind PR spin.
You don't blame it on a glitch?
No, you own it, you apologize, and you explained exactly how you are fixing it. You need an open-door policy where a franchisee can call head office and say, I am really struggling with my labor costs, or even, I made a huge mistake with the local ad campaign, without the fear of immediate judgment or punitive action from corporate. It's about establishing psychological safety.
Psychological safety. That's a huge buzzword right now, but it makes perfect sense here. But again, let me step back into the shoes of the skeptical SME founder.
Go for it.
I built my initial business by being the decisive captain of the ship. I made the rules and things moved fast. If I suddenly adopt this servant leadership model, if I let 100 franchisees have open microphones at town halls, if I give them anonymous complaint portals, doesn't that just invite absolute chaos?
It sounds like it would,
Yep.
right?
Won't I end up with 100 different people trying to steer the corporate ship in 100 different contradictory directions? How do I get anything done?
It's very common, very valid fear. But the paradoxical reality is that prime leadership is exactly what prevents chaos.
Explain that. How does letting everyone talk prevent chaos?
Think about what happens when you don't listen. Without superb leadership that actively listens and synthesizes feedback, franchisees feel ignored, isolated, and disrespected.
Sure.
When a business owner feels isolated and thinks corporate doesn't understand their local reality, that is the exact moment they decide to go rogue. That is when they start ignoring the operations manual and steering their own individual lifeboats in different directions to save themselves.
Silence breeds rebellion.
Precisely. By bringing them into the conversation, by conducting regular franchisee surveys to actively hunt for their pain points, you are actually strengthening your centralized control.
Because you're building trust.
Yes, you are building massive reserves of trust. And when a franchisee fundamentally trusts that you are listening to them and considering their perspective, they are far more likely to fall in line and follow your lead when you eventually have to make a really tough, unpopular, unilateral decision for the good of the whole brand.
Because they know it wasn't a decision made in an ivory tower. They know you heard them first.
Exactly. And the final element of preventing that chaos and keeping everyone aligned is defining a clear vision. You need vision of the future that is so clear, so articulated, that it acts as a compass.
Okay.
If the vision is absolutely clear, every single decision, whether it's made by the CEO at head office or a shift manager in a local store, can be instantly evaluated against it.
Give me an example of how a vision statement actually practically guides a franchise. Because usually they're just, words on a wall.
Let's use a boutique fitness franchise. If the stated vision of the company is simply to be the most profitable gym in every market by selling the maximum number of memberships, that vision dictates a specific culture.
A cutthroat culture.
Very cutthroat. You are going to attract franchisees who are ruthless salespeople. They will use high-pressure tactics. They won't care about facility cleanliness, and they won't care about member retention because the only goal is new sales. The culture becomes toxic, and the brand eventually burns out the local market.
Right, because the vision was purely red zone.
But if you define a clear gray zone vision, something like, our vision is to aggressively promote global wellness by creating the most supportive, inclusive fitness communities in the world, that changes everything.
How so?
That vision attracts a completely different psychological profile of franchisee. You attract like-minded partners who care deeply about the member experience, who invest in great personal trainers, and who foster a welcoming environment. The vision acts as a filter for who you let into the network, which ultimately builds a much stronger, more sustainable, and yes, more profitable business.
The vision dictates the culture dictates the personnel, and the personnel dictates the long-term survival. That is incredibly clear.
It's all connected.
But here is the natural friction point. If you are a prime leader and you are actively listening to your franchisees via these town halls and anonymous portals, you are going to hear a lot of things.
You'll hear a ton.
You are going to hear complaints about outdated systems. And more importantly, you are going to hear a ton of new ideas. Hey, corporate, we should sell this new product. Or, hey, we should change how we do our marketing. Which brings us to a massive dilemma for a franchisor.
And that dilemma leads perfectly into the second pillar of building a thriving network, a commitment to innovation.
Right, because you spent years meticulously documenting a proven system in your massive operations manual. The whole point of franchising is strict standardization. So how do you handle a flood of new ideas from your network without breaking the very system that made you successful in the first place? How do you innovate without causing chaos?
It is the tightrope walk of franchising, the tension between strict consistency and necessary evolution. To manage this, we have to define what innovation actually means in a franchise context.
Okay.
It is not just coming up with wacky, disruptive new ideas for the fun of it. The best definition of franchise innovation is the intentional collision between elevating the customer experience and driving franchise profitability.
I want to highlight that. The collision of customer experience and franchise profit, that is a fantastic filter.
It works every time.
Because it has to work for both sides of the equation. If an eager marketing executive at corporate comes up with a brilliant new packaging design that makes the customer experience 10% better, but it costs the franchise 30% more to produce and destroys their margin, that is a terrible franchise innovation.
It's toxic innovation. The franchisees will revolt, and rightfully so. Real innovation requires a commitment to constant reinvestment that respects that balance. Franchisors must proactively allocate a percentage of their revenue specifically for business improvement.
Even when times are tight.
Especially then. And the true test of this commitment is that you have to maintain that R&D budget even when things are going great to stay ahead of the curve. And crucially, you have to maintain it during economic downturns when your immediate instinct is to cut costs and hoard cash.
Give me some tangible examples of what this constant reinvestment actually looks like in the real world.
Let's look at an automotive repair franchise. A brand that is committed to innovation will constantly invest corporate capital into sourcing, testing, and subsidizing state-of-the-art diagnostic computer tools for the network.
Okay.
Now, that costs corporate a lot of money up front, and it might require the franchisees to learn a completely new system. But the result, the mechanics can diagnose engine problems twice as fast with higher accuracy.
So it hits the filter.
Exactly. That elevates the customer experience because they get their car back sooner, and it drastically increases franchisee profitability because they can turn over more cars in a single day. It hits both sides of the equation perfectly.
That's a great operational example. What about a structural example of reinvestment?
There's a brilliant example of a franchisor who looked at their annual budget and realized they were spending a massive amount of corporate rebate money on hosting a lavish multi-day annual conference for the franchisees.
Like a big boondoggle.
Yeah, big parties, celebrity keynote speakers, the whole 9 yards. They made the incredibly tough, unpopular decision to cancel the massive party, divert all of those funds, and reinvest 100% of it into an internal R&D fund strictly dedicated to developing new product lines for the network to sell.
Wow. I bet the franchisees were initially furious they lost their Vegas trip.
They were ready to riot. But 3 years later, when those new product lines became the highest margin items in their stores, the anger completely vanished.
That is true leadership right there.
It is. It's commitment to innovation, prioritizing long-term competitive advantage over a short-term dopamine hit.
But let's talk about the danger here. Innovation inherently carries risk.
Of course.
If you are an independent SME owner with one store and you try a new product and it fails, you lose a little bit of money and you move on. But if you are a franchisor and you force a brand new unproven product or a massive new software system across your entire network of 200 stores and it bombs, you have just caused catastrophic financial damage to hundreds of families.
It's devastating.
You have destroyed their trust in your leadership. You can't just experiment on their dime.
You absolutely cannot. And that brings us to one of the most vital strategic concepts in the entire franchising playbook. It's a concept called the sandpit.
The sandpit. Explain this to me.
The sandpit is a specifically designated, highly controlled environment where the franchisor can aggressively trial new products, new technologies, or entirely new ways of doing business completely outside of normal franchise operations. It is a safe space to fail.
It reminds me of a scientific laboratory or like a pharmaceutical trial.
Exactly like that.
If you invent a new chemical to purify water, you don't just dump a truckload of it into the town's water supply to see if it works. That's insane. You test it in a beaker first, you measure the toxicity, you observe the reactions. That's what the sandpit is for a business.
That analogy is flawless. What's fascinating here is how the biggest, most successful brands in the world utilize this exact strategy to protect their networks.
Like who?
Let's look at McDonald's Australia. They are arguably one of the most sophisticated franchisors on the planet. Several years ago, they wanted to fundamentally disrupt their menu and their service model. They wanted to test gourmet coffee, custom-built artisan burgers, and actual table service.
Table service at McDonald's.
Right. But they knew if they just forced that into normal McDonald's drive-thrus, it would cause absolute operational meltdown for the franchisees.
The drive-through times would explode.
It would be chaos.
Yeah.
So what did they do? Did they test it in a few corporate stores?
I assume so.
They went a step further. They built a literal sandpit. They opened a live testing lab in Sydney called The Corner.
Wait, it wasn't called McDonald's.
No. It was almost completely unbranded. It looked like a hip, independent Sydney cafe. The staff wore different uniforms. The signage was different. They used this completely isolated environment to experiment wildly without any of the constraints of the traditional McDonald's operating system.
That is so smart.
They tested new high-end coffee blends. They tested the logistics of having staff deliver food to tables. They tested complex flavor profiles.
That is brilliant. Because if a crazy new jalapeno truffle burger completely bombs and customers hate it, the core McDonald's brand takes absolutely zero reputational damage.
None.
And not a single franchise loses a dime on wasted inventory or confused staff.
Exactly. The Corner was the ultimate beaker. It was the testing ground for massive innovations like their eventual Create Your Taste customizable menu and the McCafe evolution before they ever dared to roll them out to the traditional branded franchise restaurants.
Yeah.
They worked out the supply chain kinks, they figured out the profit margins, and they built an undeniable business case using real-world data.
Are there other ways to build a sandpit if you don't have the massive budget to secretly open a fake hipster cafe?
Definitely. A more common example is a fashion retail franchise that wants to launch a highly complex, app-based customer loyalty program. Instead of a nationwide rollout, they tested in just 3 specific corporately owned locations for 6 months. They track the data obsessively. Does it slow down the checkout line? Does it actually increase repeat visits? Do the customers find the app buggy? They measure the real financial impact on retention and spending in a tightly controlled environment.
So the key to the sandpit is data collection and risk mitigation.
Yes, this is the essence of being truly agile in a dynamic market while still protecting your franchisees. You test in the sandpit, you gather the hard data, you refine the operational procedures, and you build a robust, foolproof business case.
And then you present it.
And only then do you take that data to your franchise advisory council, a board of your top franchisees, and say, look at the numbers. We proved this works. Here's exactly how it will increase your profit. It proves to the network that you aren't just throwing corporate vanity projects at the wall to see what sticks. You are methodically, scientifically innovating to protect their investment.
Okay, so pillar 1 is prime leadership. You build the culture, you check your ego, and you actively listen to the network. Pillar 2 is a commitment to innovation. You systematically test new ideas safely in the sandpit to keep the brand fiercely competitive without risking the franchisee's capital.
Which leaves us with the final piece of the puzzle.
Right, because having a wonderful, respectful culture and a lab full of brilliant new ideas doesn't mean absolutely anything if you can't actually get things done consistently across 50 or 500 different locations run by independent humans.
Exactly. And that brings us to the final and often the most emotionally taxing pillar. Pillar 3, execution.
Execution.
Or as it is more appropriately subtitled, holding the line. Execution is the gritty reality, where the franchisor's grand vision has to meet the local reality of daily operations. Flawless execution is the only thing that actually results in sustained profit for both the franchisor and the franchisee.
How do we break down execution? Where does it start?
Effective execution relies on 3 main elements. And surprisingly, the first element doesn't start with operations. It starts long before that. The first element is building a high-performance team. And in franchising, that starts with recruitment.
You're talking about recruiting the actual franchisees, not their staff.
Yes. Your entire network is only as strong and only as compliant as your weakest franchisee. If you recruit poorly, execution is impossible. You have to clearly, ruthlessly define your ideal franchisee profile.
Like their skills.
What specific professional skills do they actually need? What is their true financial capacity to weather a bad first year? And most importantly, what are their core values? Do they align with your gray zone purpose?
And I imagine the temptation to ignore that profile is immense. If I'm a new franchisor and someone walks into my office with a check for a $50,000 franchise fee and they have a pulse, My instinct is to take the check.
And that instinct will destroy your life. Desperation to sell units or taking a check from someone who just wants passive income and refuses to follow the manual is the fastest, most guaranteed way to ruin a franchise network. You have to screen candidates ruthlessly. You have to be willing to say no to money if the person is a cultural mismatch. Because once you have the right people, executing the system becomes about coaching, not fighting.
And part of that coaching is continuous training, right?
Relentless training. Let's look at a premium home cleaning franchise. They don't just train a franchisee for a week and say goodbye. They invest heavily in comprehensive, mandatory, ongoing training for both the franchisees and their local cleaning staff.
Oh, they train the frontline staff too.
Yes, they send corporate trainers to the field. They require annual recertifications. That intense commitment to training is the only way they can guarantee that a customer in Chicago gets the exact same immaculate quality of house cleaning as a customer in Dallas. That execution of consistency is what creates positive word of mouth and sustainable national success.
Okay, so you recruit the right people and you train them relentlessly. What is the second element of execution?
Profit-driven systems. Execution shouldn't rely on gut feelings. It needs to rely on cold, hard data. You have to use key performance indicators, KPIs, and technological standardization to constantly streamline operations and remove friction.
Give me a real-world example of a profit-driven system driving execution.
Think about a fast-growing hospitality franchise, maybe a chain of boutique hotels. They notice that check-in times are causing huge bottlenecks and customer complaints. To execute a better experience, corporate implements a highly standardized automated reservation and mobile check-in system across the entire network.
Taking the friction out.
Exactly. This standardizes the process, it optimizes how local owners allocate their front desk staff, it drastically reduces customer wait times, and it saves money on labor. It is a system designed specifically to drive profit and execute the brand promise seamlessly.
So we have the right team recruited, and we have data-driven systems in place. But here is the absolute crux of execution, and frankly, the hardest part of being a boss in any industry. What is the third element?
The third element is holding the line. This is the art of maintaining the incredibly delicate balance between being a supportive servant leader to your franchisees and being an absolute autocrat when it comes to strictly enforcing your brand standards.
So you have to be both.
You have to be fair, you have to be empathetic, but you have to be absolutely firm.
Because if you aren't firm, the consistency shatters. If I go to a highly respected retail franchise in my neighborhood and it's an absolute disaster, the visual merchandising is sloppy, the store is dirty, the staff is rude, I don't leave the store and say, wow, Bob, the local owner is really struggling today.
No, you don't.
I say, wow, this brand has gone downhill. I blame the logo on the building, and I am never going to any location of that brand ever again.
That is the exact nightmare scenario. The franchisor's brand equity, the multi-million-dollar asset you spent decades building, is held entirely in the hands of independent local operators every single day.
It's terrifying when you put it like that.
It is. Therefore, enforcing your standards through regular field audits, secret shoppers, and supportive but firm coaching isn't corporate micromanagement. It is literal brand survival.
Okay, I want to role play this because this is where the theory gets really real. Let's talk about the hardest scenario possible when it comes to holding the line.
Okay, hit me.
Let's say I'm the franchisor. I have a franchise named Sarah. Sarah owns 3 locations in a major city. She is an absolute machine. She is my top earner by a mile. She generates massive volume, which means every single month she writes me the biggest royalty checks in the entire network.
She's the golden goose.
Exactly. Yeah. But my field auditors come back and tell me that Sarah is completely cutting corners to boost her margins even higher.
Right.
She is secretly buying cheaper, unapproved ingredients from a local supplier instead of using the mandated national supply chain. She is ignoring the visual merchandising standards to cram more high-margin inventory onto the floor, making the stores look cluttered and cheap.
So she is highly profitable, but completely non-compliant.
Right. So what do? If I crack down on her, if I threaten to terminate her franchise agreement over ingredients and store layout, she might rebel or sue me or leave the system entirely, and I instantly lose my biggest source of corporate revenue. Do I really risk angering the goose that is laying the golden eggs, or do I just look the other way because her check's clear? How does a prime leader handle this?
This specific scenario is the ultimate defining test of a franchisor's leadership and commitment to the long-term vision.
It's the Kobayashi Maru.
Exactly. And the philosophy on this is absolute and definitive.
Right.
What you turn a blind eye to is what you accept as your new standard.
Say that again.
What you turn a blind eye to is what you accept as your new standard. If you let Sarah, your top earner, blatantly break the rules simply because she writes you big checks, you have just implicitly communicated to the entire rest of your network that your massive, meticulously crafted operations manual is entirely optional.
Because franchisees talk to each other. They will all know Sarah is getting away with it.
Of course they talk.
Yeah.
And the moment they realize the rules only apply to the people who aren't making enough money, you instantly destroy your own moral authority as a leader. You destroy the integrity of the brand. And it is the beginning of a rapid, uncontrollable descent into chaos.
It's the unraveling of the entire system.
It is. Addressing this challenge requires immense courage and a steadfast commitment to the bigger picture. You have to sit down with Sarah. You don't lead with a lawyer, you lead with the data and the vision.
Okay, so what do you say?
You say, Sarah, you are an incredible operator. Your sales are phenomenal. But you are using unapproved ingredients and degrading the store experience. This violates the core trust of the brand. It puts the entire network at risk. You have to get back into compliance immediately.
And if she refuses? Because she's arrogant and making money.
If you want to avoid systemic conflict, you must maintain absolute transparency and unwavering fairness in all your dealings. That means the rules apply equally to the struggling new franchisee who just opened yesterday and to the multi-unit top earner. If she refuses to comply, you issue the formal breach notices. You begin the legal process to terminate her agreement.
Wow.
Because the long-term integrity, consistency, and survival of the brand is infinitely more valuable than a single rogue unit's short-term royalty checks. You have to hold the line, even when it hurts your P&L in the short term.
Wow. That is the reality of leadership right there. You have to protect the many from the few.
You do.
Okay, we have covered a truly massive amount of ground today. Let's synthesize this whole journey for the SME owner who is listening right now, who is staring at that ceiling, who wants to stop spinning the plates themselves and start building an empire.
Let's summarize it.
Franchising is an incredible, unmatched vehicle for scaling your business. It mathematically solves the capital constraint problem by leveraging external funding, and it harnesses the unmatched, visceral motivation of independent owner-operators.
Yes.
But it is not a shortcut, and it is not passive income for the founder. It requires a heavy, meticulous period of preparation. You have to build the moat around your IP. You have to distill your genius into a watertight, comprehensive operations manual. And you must work with specialized legal experts to draft robust agreements that protect the system.
And beyond the operational mechanics, to truly thrive, to push past mere viability and reach that coveted pinnacle phase where franchisees and customers are breaking down your doors, you have to profoundly evolve your mindset. You must transition your network away from the fragile red zone of purely transactional, profit-driven motives. You must actively pull them into the gray zone, creating a resilient culture built on shared purpose and deep belonging.
And you achieve that transformation by erecting 3 distinct pillars. First, prime leadership. Checking your ego, adopting a genuine servant leadership mindset, actively and bravely listening to your franchisees' feedback, and providing a clear, guiding vision that acts as a North Star.
Second, a commitment to innovation. Constantly reinvesting corporate funds into the business and using a controlled sandpit to relentlessly test new ideas safely, ensuring that you only roll out changes that elevate the customer experience and boost franchisee profitability without betting their farm.
And finally, the third pillar, execution. Recruiting only the people who fit your culture, utilizing profit-driven data systems to remove friction, and having the sheer courage to hold the line, fairly but firmly enforcing your brand standards to protect the integrity of the network, no matter how big the royalty check is.
It is a profound journey of continuous personal and professional evolution. You're transforming from a highly skilled technician running a great local shop into a visionary leader guiding a regional, national, or even global network of entrepreneurs.
It's incredibly inspiring, but I know it is a lot to digest. So to wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over as you walk into your business tomorrow morning.
Let's hear it.
Look closely at your operation as it stands today, right in this moment. If you were forced to walk away entirely for 3 months, no phone calls, no emails, no dropping in to check on things, what is the very first system that would break down?
Oh, that's a great question.
Where is the very first plate going to drop? That specific vulnerability, that exact point of failure that relies entirely on your personal intervention is the very first place you need to start documenting, systemizing, and standardizing tomorrow if you ever want to build a thriving franchise.
You have to fix the X-ray machine before you can replicate the clinic.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. You've built a truly great business. You've proven the concept. Now it's time to look in the mirror and decide if you are ready to stop spinning the plates yourself and start the hard, rewarding work of teaching others how to do it. Take that first step towards scaling your vision. We'll see you next time.